We are with Beth Hassett. She's the director of WEAVE, and Julie Nauman, the director of the California Victims Compensation Board, talking about Domestic Violence Victims Awareness Month. As we approach this month now, we're into it a couple of days. What are some of the things that you would like, each of you would like people to focus on as they think about those who are victims that they may or may not know of domestic violence?
Well, I think the only point of an awareness month is for people to become educated, become more aware of what they're looking for in victimization, such as domestic violence, and what to do if they see it, how to support somebody. So I encourage everybody to get more educated about what might be going on in the lives of family and friends around them.
Any advice on how to spot it if it's not been part of an open discussion, but you think there might be something going on?
Well, I think a lot of people picture physical violence, but more often than not, it's more subtle things like that emotional abuse and financial abuse. And many victims don't have control of their own finances. It's one of the things that keeps them in that relationship, and that's why partnering with CalVCB is really important, because they can provide some of those resources that can help somebody get out and get to safety.
And that's one of the hardest parts too, isn't it? That ability to, whether it's financial, emotional, or otherwise, to break away and get into a safe place, isn't it?
People ask why somebody doesn't leave, and there are so many convoluted and complicated reasons why somebody stays in a domestic violence relationship, in a relationship that might be actually very lethal for them and their children. And very often money and a lack of resources is one of those reasons that people stay.
Well, and that's one of the things we wanted to talk about, which is why both of you are here, and that is that there are resources, there's help available for victims of all kinds of situations, including domestic violence. Julie, let's start with you on that. When you've got somebody that's in a situation like that, what kind of help can Victims Compensation Board offer them?
Well, most importantly, through this awareness month, we want victims of domestic violence to be aware that we can help. The Victim Compensation Program is here to help victims of domestic violence, as well as victims of other types of crime, deal with the cost-related issues. As Beth was talking, it's often difficult for a domestic violence victim to break out of that environment. They don't know how to do it. They don't know who's going to pay their bills. So their victimization is keeping them in an unsafe situation. The Victim Compensation Program can help relocate a victim of domestic violence and help them get out of that dangerous environment, that unhealthy environment, and move to a safe location where they can rebuild their lives. We can help them with income loss. If they are working and cannot work because of their victimization, we can help supplement their income. Most importantly, though, we can help these victims with mental health counseling. We know a lot about victimization, and we learn more all the time about how domestic violence victims react to the traumatization that they experience. And we find that the sooner a victim can get mental health counseling, the sooner they can deal with that traumatization and, again, make steps to rebuild their lives.
And I'm sorry, Beth, you were about to say something.
Well, I wanted to add that 44% of the victims, domestic violence victims who receive help through CalVCB are children. And it's critical that those little victims get that counseling, that mental health help when they're young, so they don't repeat and perpetuate that cycle of violence, becoming a victim or a perpetrator in the future. So it's a critical intervention for those little kids who've witnessed and experienced the violence as well.
And that's actually the next thing I was going to ask both of you, and that's that a lot of these folks, and they're not always women.
True.
There are many, but they're not always women. A lot of them are stuck in these situations with kids.
Very often they have kids. The average woman who stays in our safe shelter, for instance, has 2 children with her. So we're not just talking about an adult trying to break free and carry on their own. They've got little kids with their own particular needs, and it's expensive and very challenging to even imagine a life without resources away from the person who's been perpetrating violence against you.
We've also learned through research that we've done that there are a number of barriers that keep women of domestic violence as well as men who are victims of domestic violence from coming forward, from talking and contacting law enforcement. And one of the big fears is just this, that what will happen to my children if I call the police, if I report my perpetrator? What's going to happen to my children? Where else are they going to live? Who's going to support us? So it's very important to recognize that in many of these instances, we're dealing with family. This is a family issue. And so it is the children as well as the direct victim that need the assistance that we can provide through our program.
Indeed. Now, we've talked about Victims' Compensation Board. Beth, when it comes to Weave, what kind of resources are available for these folks?
I mean, for people who are in the most danger, the most desperate, have the fewest resources, we have safe shelter so people can actually come and live in a safe environment while they figure out what they need next. We offer robust legal services. Sometimes it's that restraining order that somebody needs, or to start the dissolution process, or to focus on that child custody, because that is such a big fear, what's going to happen to my kids. And we also offer counseling and intervention services for people who are maybe contemplating leaving, aren't quite sure whether that's what they need to do next, but need that support and advocacy while they make that decision.
And I want to make sure I'm clear, when you use the term dissolution, are you talking just about people who are married, or also maybe unmarried people who have children together?
Dissolution usually means divorce, but then child custody can often be with people who aren't married, have never been married, but the perpetrator might still have rights to having access to those kids. And when the victim's male, very often they're worried that they won't have a voice in where those kids are going to go, and what that custody is going to look like.
Yeah, it seems no matter how much we evolve in terms of the family court system, men sometimes do feel like, and in some states outside of California, don't have as much of a voice or priority when it comes to the kids as mothers often do.
Absolutely.
So let's say one of you is the first call, or when somebody goes to make that first call, where do they call? What do they need to do to get the process started?
I know on our end, they very often call our support and information line and ask about what's available to them. They might walk into our offices, and one of the things we offer as part of the whole array of services is we can help you sign up for Cal VCB benefits, and so we do that as part of the whole intake and part of what we're doing to serve them.
And that's really why we are partnering on this effort this year to increase awareness about domestic violence in the Sacramento area, because we do have this ongoing partnership where Weave is our local shelter provider, and it's really important, and we value so much that they value our program and make sure that victims know about the program and can get them signed up as quickly as possible. In fact, about 29% of the applications that we get for help in Sacramento County are victims of domestic violence. So that number is a large number. We always wish it were smaller, but I think it goes a long way in impressing upon our community just how prevalent domestic violence is in our community and unfortunately across California.
Indeed. Now, and that's another thing I wanted to sort of back you up a little bit, because I know domestic violence is a large portion of what you do, but for people who might not know about the California Victims Compensation Board, can you give us sort of a layman's explanation of what you do?
Well, again, we provide direct assistance by paying for medical expenses, mental health treatment, relocation, even home security. But again, this is a problem across the state, and we spent about $8 million last year helping victims of domestic violence through mental health counseling. So this is a statewide program. This month is about awareness not only in our local community, but awareness across the state. So anyone who's listening that has friends, relatives throughout California, we want them to know that this program is available to them.
How about outside that close to 1/3 that's their victimization is because of domestic violence. There are crime victims and other people you're able to help.
We are able to help all victims of violent crime. And a very interesting fact about our program is that it is not supported by taxpayers. The funds that we have available to us to provide this help to victims actually comes from the fines and penalties that perpetrators of violent crime and even misdemeanors pay through the court system. So it's important for people to know that even if you're a victim of crime and your perpetrator cannot be identified, you can still come to this program, and our funds are still available to serve any victim of violent crime.
All right, Julie Nauman, Director of the California Victims Compensation Board, and on her left, Beth Hassett of Weave. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you.